Hi everyone, I'm Zen, your astrologer, and welcome to your horoscope for the week of June the 14th, 2021. We have a really active and intense sky playing out all throughout the week, and I'm not gonna lie, this is gonna be one of those moments when the chaos is going to be in full swing, especially on the world stage. We may also see this playing out in our local community, in our country, in our society, but at the same time, this chaos, of course, it can also influence us very personally. But it is, of course, not all doom and gloom, because chances are for some people out there, the chaos can also birth unexpected, sudden, lucky opportunities where for some people this can play out as unexpected gains, help from others, recognition from others, gifts for some people. And of course, this energy can be extremely lucky or have an element of good fortune to it regarding relationships, especially romantic relationships, where suddenly, unexpectedly, you might just come across, meet, or attract someone who might spark up your interests. Or it can also be someone extremely unusual who is perhaps not really your type, but there is something very unique about this person, and of course it will spark up your curiosity. Towards the very end of the week, we also have a really powerful energy shift as the sun leaves Gemini and enters Cancer. And of course, it is also the moment of the summer solstice, which even from a non-astrological perspective represents a really powerful energy shift every single year, because it simply starts another cycle within nature. And of course, this start of summer, where even physically the heat just grows, the sun becomes more powerful, days become longer, so the light is a much more predominant element here, and the light symbolically is also truth, it is also our creativity, it is also our healthy passions. So this energy can be quite revitalizing for some people, and of course at the same time, Mars, the planet of action, the activator, the male principle, is in the home sign of the sun, Leo, a part of the sky where it is extremely powerful, and it is able to bring forward its higher qualities, which is passion, which is heated emotions, courage, bravery, self-confidence, inspired action, even risks in some cases. And even though there naturally is a very assertive side to this as well, Mars, and without even needing to go into detail, we just know that this will spark off spirits, this will cause some very strong emotions. But of course, how we use this energy depends on us, so we can simply invest it in our passions, everything that we love passionately, matters of love, creativity, hobbies, everything that basically has to do with the sign of Leo. And it's also the sign of the inner child, so it's a really good energy to simply have fun, to concentrate on the light-hearted, pleasurable, and basically joyful activities in life. And yet another extremely important energy shift is going to be provided by Jupiter. Around the 18th of June, Jupiter is going to stop in the sky and enter stationary position, which means that it's preparing to go retrograde. It will start the retrograde motion around the 25th of June. Of course, the larger picture, the larger date of this Jupiter retrograde season, well, it starts officially on the 20th of June and it lasts until the 18th of October. But starting from the 18th of June until the 25th of June, it is stationary, it is standing still in the sky, which means that its symbolism is greatly amplified. So it is extremely powerful, and Jupiter is the great benefic after all, so planet of good fortune. And when Jupiter is extra powerful, taking into consideration that it's also in its ancient ruling sign of Pisces, and that is a really strong karmic energy, that is a very strong spiritual, emotional, artistic, creative energy, meaning that Jupiter at this time can truly influence us from deep within our souls, granting us a heightened spiritual opportunity to attract good fortune basically, or the manifestation of our deepest beliefs in our lives. But of course, this also has a totally different side as well, because Jupiter amplifies everything that it touches. So at this time we must make sure that it's not really our fears, our insecurities, the hurts, pains and traumas of the past that it amplifies, because that is also part of Pisces. It is a very strong emotional sign, very strong water, feminine energy. So basically what we focus on is what we're going to get. So even if around this time, of course, there are going to be a lot of fears, insecurities, moments of confusion, or just not knowing what the greater truth is due to other aspects which I'm going to be speaking about in a moment. Of course, this is also part of the theme for everyone. Yet we have to make sure that basically our hopes, our optimism, our faith is much stronger than our fears. So, if at around this time we are going to be invited almost by the celestial energies to focus on our biggest problems that we might be facing around this time, our lacks, our needs, our triggers as well, due to the Saturn and Uranus square, we can take this energy of a stationary Jupiter, an extra powerful Jupiter in its home sign of Pisces, and basically use it to focus on solutions. The need is there, of course. It bothers us, maybe it frustrates us, it irritates us, and that is basically absolutely fine, because no one can shut out and ignore their needs or whatever basically is triggering them. And chances are, this Uranus is going to really, really highlight at this time basically the truth when we're missing something from our lives, when something is wrong, when something is imbalanced, or something that we really need, or we really want, or we really desire to have in our lives. Uranus and Taurus. Taurus's value system, everything that we love, everything that we find valuable, beautiful. So it will definitely make us feel our wants and needs that much stronger, but we can focus on basically finding solutions. If nothing else, we can just use this power of desire, amplified by Mars being in Leo, to desire solutions, to desire help, to desire maybe like an epiphany, a eureka moment, a bright idea, even if in that moment solutions might not really be visible in the external reality. We can just, use this Jupiterian strength of belief, of optimism, of hope to place the emphasis on our magnetism, on whatever we believe in that can help us. May that be the spiritual world, may that be, quantum physics, may that be good fortune, may that be our own strength, the strength of our psyche, mind over matter, regardless of what our own personal idea, philosophy and faith about how we can attract things in our life is. Well, we can basically focus on that and make sure that we turn this Jupiter in Pisces into a battery fueling our magnetism, or giving emphasis on our higher way of thinking, our most elevated philosophies, our inner truth, divine justice as well, Jupiter is the planet which governs law and legislation. So, as I always used to say, when earthly justice fails us or is not present in our lives, in those moments we have to count on divine justice. An extremely strong Jupiter in Pisces, of course, also represents floods, the power of water basically. Pisces can also be associated with the sea, with the ocean, so that means storms at the sea, tsunamis, perhaps also an international legal issue around territory at seas. Another expression of this energy, well, Pisces rules secrets, so it can mean secrets of the ocean, the discovery of new marine species, or secrets under the water like an archaeological finding, a wreckage, even treasure. Now, if there is an energy which can actually influence, finding the treasure, as in a pirate treasure or sunken treasure, treasure buried by the sea, it is definitely Jupiter in Pisces. And even though this sounds like a fairy tale or like a dream, usually Jupiter, especially in Pisces, is all about big dreams because we can never know might it become true. And speaking about Jupiter, it also holds an absolutely beautiful celestial conversation at the very, very end of the week. As the Sun enters into the sign of Cancer, it will immediately hold a trine with Jupiter stationary. And this is a really wonderful, beautiful, deeply artistic, emotional, spiritual energy of inspiration, love, creativity, even romance, because both Cancer and Pisces are very romantic signs. This is also very optimistic, very faithful, dreamy energy that we can use in so very many ways, especially for artists, musicians. It is also a really good energy for home decoration, interior design, and of course to upgrade the spiritual corner of your home. Pisces is one of the most spiritual signs, and Cancer is the sign of the home. So basically make your home your temple in quite a literal sense. This is also quite a lucky energy because Jupiter is the planet of good fortune and the Sun is the light of our consciousness. And good fortune may come from the past. Both Pisces and Cancer have to do with the past, like family, relatives, people who were an important part of your life in the past. Cancer is also the culture, the community where you belong to. So good fortune or any kind of lucky opportunity may arise from there. And when I say lucky, well, it doesn't necessarily have to be like money or gains or anything very down to earth. It can also be like a beautiful compliment, people around you making you feel special, loved, and at the same time, it can be, for example, healing the past, like an apology, a communication, which really makes you rethink the past and basically heal it due to a truth, a word, an apology, or a beautiful emotion coming from someone who was part of your past. But this is just the very end of the week. Chances are things are not gonna be as dreamy, as inspirational, as romantic at the beginning of the week, because that is when we're going to be under an extremely powerful, chaotic, anxious, and emotionally quite unsettling energy, because it is at the very beginning of the week when we have the second perfection of the long-term Uranus and Saturn square, where this time, at this second confrontation of these planets, we have Saturn in retrograde position, which kind of adds to the intensity of this energy, Saturn can represent so very many things, and when it's retrograde, the symbolism turns inwards. So it can be our own limitations, it can be our problems which kind of need urgent solution, and that Uranus kind of rubs it in quite deeply this time, regardless if we look at this personally, individually, or collectively. Our most urgent problems will kind of scream at us that they need solution, that they need at least an idea, that we might have to totally abandon our comfort zones in order to tackle the problems. Of course, there is another nuance of this energy, which is the opposite, where the Saturn can represent our own limits, our own moral integrity, for example, our own dignity, our own boundaries, and that Uranus is the trigger trying to basically demolish our boundaries, demolish our inner stability. So this can play out individually as a lot of new problems or new aspects of the same problem surfacing unexpectedly, and we just have to confront them and try our very, very best and hardest to solve these kind of problems by respecting our integrity, morality, and not making, for example, compromises which are way against our highest principles, for example. This can also challenge our value systems. For example, that Uranus can just make it even more obvious everything that we need to have in our lives, regardless if those are like psychological elements, everything that makes us feel strong, valuable, self-esteem, self-confidence, etc. Or if there are material and physical elements like money, personal possessions, gains, or the mixture of both. For example, how pleased we are with our physical bodies, our look, our social status, for example. So this might cause an extreme restlessness where we might feel an incredibly strong inner tension, or basically an inner restlessness, an inner sense of urgency, as if we don't have much time to fix our problems, or time is running out. The passing of time disadvantages us, for example. Yet, there is this other nuance of this energy, Saturn stability. So a lot of people might feel that they will give up certain parts of their freedom or even individuality to have greater stability in their lives if this is a fair trade, so to speak, symbolically speaking. And naturally on the world stage, this can very well play out as another moment of great tension when two ideologies, two, let's say, political views, opinions clash. There are those people who prefer stability, who prefer safety, and are willing to sacrifice some of their freedom, for example. And there are people who really, really want freedom, who want no restrictions in any way, shape, or form possible, and who are naturally willing to go to any length to protect freedom, equality, their rights. And of course, another expression of this energy can represent economical instability, spikes, for example, in cryptocurrencies, Uranus, or an unexpected economic change, or for example, due to another aspect we are going to have at the end of the week, where Venus opposes Pluto. Venus is also currency. So this can play out as the unexpected fall of currency or some kind of value, investments, or a chaos on the stock market. Now, naturally, Uranus is the rebel. Uranus is the planet of freedom. So we can imagine that this will automatically mean protests, people taking to the streets, demanding their rights, fighting against limitations, At the same time, as I said earlier, Mars is in Leo, so that is extra courage, that is extra ambition, assertion. Venus also opposes Pluto. Pluto is in Capricorn, so it can be seen as the power of the government, the power of the leaders, oppressing people, their families, the unity of people. Venus in Cancer. So, when people perceive that it is not just them, but their families and loved ones, again, Venus in Cancer, are also threatened one way or another, or disempowered, for example, their rights taken away or their rights limited. Well, it is only natural that they won't stand for it. Now, this can also be an energy which plays out in relationships. As I said, due to this Venus and Pluto opposition, which will get stronger and more exact after next week, this might play out as emotional up and down, emotional instability within relationships. Who has the power over who makes decisions, who is the dominant element within a relationship, and who is the more submissive one? Is the relationship offering everyone equally, like a safe haven, emotional nurture, stability, emotional groundedness? Or is that the problem, that it's way too much, where some people may feel suffocated, controlled, or, for example, emotionally blackmailed? So this might really, really stir up relationships. And on its own, it's a short-term aspect. Venus will move on quite quickly. But if we combine this with the Saturn and Uranus square, well, this can represent surprises, moments of truth, moments of emotional epiphany, where you just figure out suddenly that you no longer want to be in a relationship, or that you want to be in a relationship, but you might not accept the terms and conditions, so to speak. So this energy can be quite unsettling, emotionally and psychologically as well. And another expression of this Saturn and Uranus square, which might play out one way or another in our lives from an individual perspective and also on the world stage, but from a more legal, more general perspective. Well, Saturn is time. Saturn is sacrifice. Saturn is our efforts, basically. And Uranus in Taurus is value. It is money. It is our personal possessions. So this might basically raise an issue if we are willing to sacrifice our times, our energy, our effort, our even physical energy, like our physical strength, for material resources, in the sense that if one cannot find their own individuality, their own uniqueness, and basically their resonance in perhaps a job that they're doing, they might have a very deep look if the resources, the money, the security, basically the value that the sacrifice of their time and effort adds to their life is worth it or not. So for a lot of people, this Saturn and Uranus square will also inspire them to change their jobs, to change the way they earn money, to change how much time they sacrifice for a job, for work, for resources. At this time, Ceres, goddess of harvest, goddess of the grain, is also conjunct Uranus. So for a lot of people out there, this can come through as a desire, or let's say a plan, an epiphany, that they might want to escape the routine, the traditional way to basically make a living, and they might be inspired to go back in nature, as in Taurus is Mother Earth. It is also the biosphere, the physical crust of the earth, so it has so much to do with agriculture as well. So a lot of people might get inspired to move out in the midst of nature and just start growing their own food or start embracing a much more nature-oriented and natural lifestyle. Of course, for others still, Uranus is technology, the internet. It is the thing of the future, the next, the new way of doing things. So for a lot of people, this might be quite the opposite, where they might try new things which they haven't done before. For example, online kind of work with the internet, work from home, remote work, promoting their business online, on social media, or selling on the internet. For example, if one has a business which they haven't included this before, they might all of a sudden decide that this is the next, the new, this is the future, where they might stop selling in a physical location, let's say, and start selling much more online. And like always, Saturn and Uranus are both rulers of the sign of Aquarius, which is the most future-oriented, and it has so much to do with technology. So even if this conversation is one of tension, and it's not quite obvious which planet from these two is the strongest, usually it's Uranus because it's further away from the sun, but it's in fall in the sign of Taurus, while Saturn is extra powerful in Aquarius. So basically chances are 50-50. So this will raise issues about technology and our quantum leap from a technological perspective. Some people will desire this even more than ever and will definitely support this and work towards this, while other people will hold a strong opposition where they say, well, enough is enough. If technology takes away our basically core values, our humanity, our spirit of adventure, or our jobs, let's say, the human element from a job, is that truly positive? So there will be discussions about this subject 100%. And to make this energy even more controversial, even more combative in a dual way, well, we also have the Sun squaring Neptune, Sun in Gemini and Neptune in Pisces, signs which represent duality in the zodiac. So this will be about what is true, what is not true, what is logical, what is rational, and what is not. This is where we will be able to see this play out even in the scientific community, where like scientists with a lot of research and experience behind them will accuse each other, especially each other's theories, that they're false, that they're untrue, that they're not based on empirical research. So basically, imagine how confusing this is going to be for everyone else who doesn't have the training of a scientist. What do we believe? What do we focus on? What can we accept as truth? Especially when it's not about like the battle of science and spirituality, but it's about the battle of science versus science. And to make this even stronger, Jupiter, the planet of truth, is stationary, so it's extra powerful. Pisces is the sign of secret. So, there will be a lot of pressure and almost an obsession with finding out the truth, finding out, for example, what really happened with the COVID, where it came from, how it started. And at the same time, Jupiter, the planet of law, legal battles, legal discussions. Who is responsible for this? Who has to answer for this? And at the same time, there is a trine between Mercury retrograde and Saturn retrograde, air trine. So this is also about investigation, about trying our hardest to comprehend, to process, to logically, rationally, also in a very down-to-earth way, understand what exactly is going on. And even though this is a trine, it is a blessing basically. We might get information, communication, confirmation from the past, especially the recent past. And besides how this affects the global picture, as in wanting to find out the truth, Personally, this can be quite a positive energy because, as we know, Mercury retrograde is all about going back, rethinking, reprocessing, finding solutions to problems, especially paperwork, communication, documents, which was blocked in just the recent past. So this energy is really, really good to start finding these solutions, to start completing that which was left from the recent past unfinished, for example. Even though these solutions might not be immediate, they might only come online, so to speak, around July, the very beginning of July. At least this trine can start the process, as in giving us valid confirmation that we can trust, that we are gonna solve this, we are gonna handle this, that document, that, for example, court ruling, that contract, any kind of legal issue, documentation, paperwork is gonna find a solution. It can simply be a promise, it can simply be like a phone call from an authority that, look, I'm handling this case, I'm handling the document, the situation, and it's gonna be complete by this and this date. So this can be a really good energy. And we might get the highlight of this around the 19th of June, when we have a grand trine between the moon in Libra, contracts, partnerships, legal agreements, legal issues, Mercury retrograde in Gemini, so our partners, in regardless in which sense, legal partners, life partners, colleagues, or anything that has to do with another person, and Saturn in Aquarius, so it can represent a completion, a help, an inspiration, a communication. For example, because we have both Saturn and Mercury retrograde, that can represent an offer, an opportunity which we missed out in the past returns into our lives, or we thought about something and we are able to make a decision. So this energy is going to be quite helpful, making this Saturn and Uranus square a little bit more tolerable. And as I said, it's chaos, and chaos can go either way. It can create a lot of unexpected problems, blockages, things that irritate us, things that just set us off temporarily from our course. But at the same time, it can also give birth to unexpected, unforeseen new opportunities or solutions, epiphanies, new ideas, new approaches. So there is also the constructive side of this. And also at the very end of the week, at the time of the summer solstice, we have a Venus and Neptune trine, which is really beautiful, romantic, compassionate, empathic, and quite miraculous energy, because Neptune is the higher octave of Venus. So if Venus is everything that we love, everything that we want to have in our lives, it is our magnetism, our attraction, the passive female element. Well, then Neptune is that on a divine scale. So if Venus is love, then Neptune is unconditional love. If Venus is creativity, then Neptune is the epitome of the artistic inspiration. And even though this energy is going to be a little bit tricky, because we must not forget that Venus also opposes Pluto, and Pluto is either a kind of truth that we really don't want to look at. It can be our shadow. It can be, for example, emotional instability. It can be emotional blackmail, but not to be taken very literally. Sometimes it is actually us who manipulate ourselves emotionally. But this Venus trine Neptune kind of act as a saving grace, where we can see the more divine, spiritual, the deeper meaning of whatever the Venus and Pluto opposition are gonna trigger in our lives. Let me just give you an example, which doesn't really have to be the case for everyone. Venus opposing Pluto can mean a separation, the emotional separation before a divorce, let's say. It can be finding out the truth about infidelity in a couple or whatever secrets from the past, maybe dirty secrets. And regardless of how that plays out, that is painful, that is disruptive, that is a very unpleasant energy. And because we have this Neptune-Venus trine at the same time, it can play out as, well, okay, the separation is uncomfortable, but I've been wishing for months, maybe a year now, to just have more freedom in my life, to have a much more solitary lifestyle where I can focus on myself, on my needs, on my own, let's say, creativity or whatever that Neptune is for each and every one of us individually. So however that Venus opposition Pluto manifests, we can basically have this feeling that it was fated. It played out in such a way because a greater divine purpose where we also had one of our, let's say, dreams, wishes, desires fulfilled, and we needed that ending or that separation, that change of heart, that change of feelings. Or it can be like a fated event which changes everything, Neptune trine Venus. For example, a relationship can end because one partner will actually find their fated love, let's say. So of course, that will put them in a position where they have to decide. This can also be at the same time a very powerful spiritual and psychological healing energy, because Pluto is the planet of psychoanalysis, so this might bring to the surface certain traumas or triggers or disappointments from the past. You know, that Venus in Cancer, it can also represent that which made us feel unloved, worthless, etc. from the past. And the trine with Neptune heals it, regenerates it. It helps us alchemize the past. Maybe we find out something, or maybe we have a revelation, a personal spiritual revelation of why something happened in the past, something negative, and we just attribute a different meaning to it, and through this we actually heal the past, because that memory will ultimately change and be transformed to something else. And when we can attribute a really positive and almost divine meaning to something which was predominantly negative, and we always perceived it that way, that kind of changes everything. That changes our reality, that changes our mindset and our frequency and magnetism. And at the same time, you know, Mercury retrograde, Saturn retrograde, it's not just a purely spiritual, psychological or emotional energy. It's also like rational thinking, Mercury, where we might get a communication from the past, or we might basically rethink, reprocess everything that happened to us, and we might reach a different truth, a different conclusion. Like, for example, we might have blamed ourselves for something that happened in the past, let's say a bad choice or a mistake, or the situation kind of reflected at that time that it was our fault, and we find out something, Mercury retrograde, from the past, like a communication or someone telling you something, or a secret being revealed, Jupiter and Pisces, and all of a sudden it becomes that much more obvious to you that it wasn't your fault, so you can find this forgiveness, this relief, you can let go of that guilt or shame or that bad memory, Pluto in Capricorn, which kind of impacted your perception until this moment, and also that means inner structure, Capricorn. So this concludes this week's astrology report. I do hope that you enjoyed it and you found it useful. If you'd like to support my work, you can donate on the PayPal link in the description of the video. Thank you everyone for your likes, your shares, your beautiful comments. I wish everyone a blessed and amazing week. As a final advice, I can only say, please focus on solutions, on the positive outcomes of events as much as you can, to make sure that you're tapping into the power of that stationary Jupiter, and it will also give you inner strength to cope with however the Saturn and Uranus square may manifest in your life personally. So always remember that chaos also has a creative and lucky side to it. It doesn't just have to be doom and gloom. Thank you again for listening. Until next time, bye for now.